Hey there, this is the Resistor Vic podcast. I'm here to get folks thinking about politics as something that's really about regular people like you and me, and to realize that together we can make a difference. I'm Vic Myers. Welcome to the Resistance. So I had my county caucuses today and came home. The county caucuses went great, except for our state party under Director Shad Mirib gave us a brand new system of voting. And it was rolled out within weeks of the caucus, wasn't tested, the training for people was not there, and it didn't work. It was a complete shit show. So way to go, Shad. But anyway, I came back from my caucus and turned on the TV while I grabbed some lunch, and I saw the president, for the first time, I believe, going to a dignified transfer of soldiers coming back, the 6 soldiers who died in Iran. And it just made me livid because he is not in uniform, but he's standing there with his hat on the whole time. Yeah, he saluted, but while he's standing there saluting, he's watching, waiting to see if the caskets have arrived where they could so that he could take his hand down. It was so unbelievably disrespectful. And that on top of a United States senator breaking the arm of a Marine the other day and bragging about it on social media. And that Marine is getting charges, 7 criminal charges. And all he did was stand up and use the rights that he defended while he was in that uniform to say, we do not want to go to war for Israel. And they practically tackled him. They physically drug him out. His hand got caught in the door. And Senator Sheehy from Montana grabbed his feet and was pulling on him. And you could hear and see his arm break. It was so unbelievably disgusting. And what's the first thing a Republican will do when a President Trump sends troops to a war that he promised would never happen? They line up behind him. What's the first thing Republicans do when it's time to ask for votes? They want to find a vet somewhere and get their picture taken, shaking their hand. And I'm sorry, folks, but if you look around, if you pay attention, there is not a single Republican at any level in America who is willing to say any of this is wrong, which, in my opinion, means there is not a single Republican anywhere in America on a ballot that deserves anybody's vote. And every election, every Republican that wins an election this year is an example of Americans failing. Now I got that off my chest. I want to welcome my guest, Ludwig Gartz. He's from Germany. When I started my podcast, I said that I wanted to get the viewpoint of our friends across the pond to see what they think about Trump's America and how we as Americans are dealing with it. And I finally got around to doing that. Ludwig has been very patient because we were supposed to be recording last Saturday. Earlier in the day, it's 11 o'clock there. And he's been great. So Ludwig, welcome and thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Vic. It's a pleasure.
What do you do in Germany?
I am writing books. I'm a book author. Since I wrote my first book I published my first book in 2008 on the topic of the monetary system, analyzing the monetary system and showing that the system we have can really not produce any other results than what we see in the world. And the monetary system we have is the number one cause that the world looks the way it looks. And we are made believe that there is only this option between capitalism on the one side and socialism, communism on the other, while these two things are only two sides of the same coin, which both sides, in my opinion, direct us towards a dictatorship. And the third path remains completely hidden and people don't know about it, that it would be possible to have a free economy that is not serving the super rich, but everybody who is working. It would be possible.
My first two reactions when you told me what you were writing a book on was, this guy's a lot smarter than me. And two, that sounds very intriguing. I've long believed that the reason the Soviet Union collapsed was because their form of communism had no checks and balances on greed. And I believe that capitalism is going to fail eventually, if it's not in end stage right now, because there are no checks and balances on greed. Does that line up with your research in terms of the greed factor?
Both. I mean, the way the system is played, the laws they make, they either serve the super rich, like the big corporations, or they serve a central government to get more power. But behind both tendencies is the same people who control both the corporations and the governments. That's why a two-party system that you have in the States, like with the Republicans and Democrats, they serve the same masters. That's how I see it.
Can't argue with that. Part of my mission is to hopefully be one of many catalysts in changing that, because the Democratic Party wasn't always, I mean, I'm not going to be so naive as to say they didn't always serve the wealthy, but they also once upon a time served the working class.
Well, there was an interesting time in the 19th century, which is, you see, long before 1913. 1913 is when America stopped being a democracy, when the Fed took over and controlled everything. And there's an interesting long video analysis by a name Bill Still, I think was his name, and he made a documentation called The Money Masters, and showing how the moneylenders took gradual control of America between the revolution, when they first tried, and basically 1913, when the Fed was founded. And in that period, there was a president called Jackson, I think. He abolished the bank, and he was very proud of it. That was the part where the banks in the background were completely under control, and they had a difficult time imposing their dominance over the American people. And the 19th century was when you had the most freedoms, really, which were then more and more taken away.
I'm looking something up. I'm not being rude.
Okay.
What's the name of your book? We didn't say that. That was Flowing Money, Fließendes Geld, Flowing Money, which is the concept, which is system. There were different systems of flowing money in Europe in the High Middle Ages up until around 1300. The Templars had one until it was twisted, and there were different systems all over Germany, which was called Brachtiats, and it's basically putting a tax on money itself, which makes money, which is anti-hoarding money. So you don't hoard money, because if you hoard money for a long time and there's a taxation, and you lose money. So it's like it circulates very fast, and it's lend away at zero interest, and that creates incredible wealth in the economy, and boosting all the SME, really small and medium enterprises.
And in that period, there were no large corporations of any kind. That goes along with, with capitalism. Capitalism is, when you don't have interest, money is just money, a means of payment. But when you get interest on money, it becomes capital. And once you have capitalism, you have an automatic redistribution of wealth from bottom to top, which is slowly over hundreds of over many centuries. But between the high Middle Ages and today, or the late Middle Ages, when the systems of the high Middle Ages collapse, and today, you've had more and more property and assets accumulated by less and less people, which the system does automatically. And today you have these super rich who just control about the whole planet. They control the governments. They control almost everything, and they want to go the last step towards a total dictatorship. And that
I submit that, one, you're right, and two, we in America anyway, we the people have the power to keep that from happening, and it is so simple to do. It's a vote. We have the power to vote, and they can't take that away from us unless we let them. If people would engage, and when I say vote, I don't just mean vote out Republicans. I'm talking about voting out the incumbents, the people who keep propagating the growth of the oligarchy. And that's happening in both parties. But we could stop it if we were smart enough and determined enough to stop it.
It's not only about being smart. The whole system runs on ultimately on corruption. As always, the higher you get, the more you profit from acting against the general public. What these people do is they collect all this money at the expense of everyone else, and all those who get like higher up in the system, the more higher up, the more you profit from it, and the less personal interest you have to make any changes in favor of the general public, in favor of justice. Right?
Yeah. Well, in 19
actually, if you really want to change it, we need an ethical renaissance, that people go see that the integrity is more valuable for them than accumulating riches. That most people have a commitment to not being corrupt. And that comes from the people's attitudes, from the consciousness. As long as people say, "Oh, I don't care. As long as I get a lot of money, I do what they want."
I'm not being rude. I'm writing down something that you just said that I want to come back to in my work. Ethical renaissance.
People's minds have been corrupted. You cannot vote this system off.
Well, I hear that argument a lot. Are you familiar with Tad Sturmer? He's an American who lives in Denmark. He works for the University of Denmark, and he writes on resistance, the history of American resistance. And he would agree with you that you can't just simply, in America today, you can't simply vote it out. But that's as much as I like him. I disagree, because we have the biggest lever of power is the vote. We could vote for ethical people. We could, if we cared enough to take the time to look at who's running, and if we cared to take the time to unvote for, or unelect rather, the people who fail. But we don't do that. We're so polarized into our parties that we will not vote for the other party simply because, everybody hates Congress. Everybody hates whoever the president is, but they all love their own congressman or their own senator or the president of their party.
Yeah.
I don't know how we get along that.
I agree with that. For people, it's more important which party you are belong to than is this man credible? Does this man have integrity or not? And if you come to a conclusion, well, this man promised this and did that, he has no integrity, I won't vote for him. If everyone was that consequential, saying, well, he lied, I'm not going to vote for him again.
Yeah.
Right.
And now we've got a guy who's famous for lying.
Yeah.
And he's normalizing lying.
I mean, Trump is just a big show of the most unethical behavior. I mean, this is so incredible what he's doing.
So to the subject at hand, what do people in your part of the world, what do they think when they look at America, what we were compared to what we've become and all that?
I mean, I can't really speak for the majority. The majority of people, unfortunately, are still mainstream believing here.
Yeah.
Still believing what television says and what they are supposed to think and believe. So they're still very much mind controlled, I would say. And then there are these people who realize that, well, politics really, it just all sucks. And the real battle is not in the mainstream media. The real battle is in the alternative media, the battle for the minds of the people. And what I see is here, the alternative media have been for a very long time, actually since the beginning of them, like 20, 25 years ago, have been very much infiltrated particularly by the Russian Secret Service, by Russian propaganda.
Yeah.
Pro-Putin propaganda. And it's lots of people who've turned away from mainstream media who think that Putin is a good guy and they think that Trump is a good guy, and they are going to go against the old system and make us free. That's all propaganda that comes from the alternative media.
And they get away with it so easily because before the internet was invented, the movement to destroy public education was started. And we do not allow our children to learn how to think creatively or to think critically anywhere near as much as we used to. There's still some, but generally speaking, we don't teach our kids, our younger generations, to think critically.
That's very true. And sadly, it's the same in Europe. It's the same in Europe. The school system is unfortunately doing a very good job in just making everyone dumb, making the kids obedient, making the kids believe, okay, this is the system, this is how you have to operate, become this small wheel in the system and function and obey and never really think critically. And here it's the red-green ideology has very much been made into everybody's supposed to think that this is just the truth. It's not an ideology. I mean, the left-leaning and green view to the world is just the truth, which is also very woke. You know, the mainstream media are very woke. And when I see the kids, it's very alarming how brainwashed they are. Even when they come out of school, not able to really think critically at all, and very biased and very much part of the system,
easily influenced.
Not even knowing that they are not able to think critically. They don't know.
So for those of us, or for those who are just joining or weren't here at the beginning, Ludwig is in Germany, and he joined us to talk about, well, just a general conversation, but I want to learn what the viewpoint is from overseas about Trump's America. So you brought up America's two-party system earlier. How many parties do you have in Germany? Because I often get discussions in my comments about two parties. You know, we need a third party. We need a third party. How many parties do you have in Germany, and how does your system of government work?
I can tell you that things do not get better if you have a third, fourth, or fifth party. We have in the parliament, in the federal parliament, we have, I'm not even following this close, but I think we have a conservative party, supposedly, but they are very left leaning by now. There's not really a conservative party now, except the Alternative for Germany. It's CDU, SPD, FDP, Linke, Grüne. I think we have either 5 or 6. I'm not even following it, because to me it's like a one-party system. A one-party system now with different parties which all serve the same master. So if you have two parties, if you have 2 parties serving the same masters, or 6 parties serving the same masters, it makes no difference. It makes no difference. And they all do. They all. I mean, we have the Alternative for Germany, which tries to, or supposedly takes a pro-German stand and tries to really protect German interests, tries to keep the flood of foreigners, particularly of Muslims, away from us. But I mean, they are not in government.
My understanding of the AFD is they're the American version of MAGA.
Yeah, you could say. And they are very much influenced by the alternative media, thinking that Putin is a good guy and Trump is good. And so it's really sad. it's really sad, I think. So there's no real political opposition here, except the few people who kind of look through the system, but they are so few, they're not really politically very active.
So do you see on your television or in your news media over there, do you see the coverage of our protests and things like that are going on?
No.
No? I ask because I often get comments saying, why aren't Americans doing anything? And there are protests every week all across America.
Yeah. I know in England as well, there's so many English people now protesting against the mass immigration, not wanting it. But the mainstream media are not reporting at all, and also not about America. Or if they ever do, it's very biased against, like it's always extremists and Nazis and nationalists who hate foreigners, and these kind of comments. But mostly they just don't show. The same in Germany, when we had really, really huge demonstrations against the pandemic policies, where I think there was 1 million or 2 people in Berlin. They corrected 1 million down to 20,000 or 30,000 or something. Very ridiculous. And then also trapping them into inviting them here, come up here to the parliament, and then showing in the media, look, these fanatics, they have been storming the parliament now. It's like inviting them, you can come here now, and then showing them in a very, very bad light. So it's just so, the mainstream media are just so, I don't want to use that 4-letter word.
I don't want to assume anything, but so I'll ask, have you always lived in Germany? Did you grow up in Germany? German education system?
I grew up here, and the education system was much better in my time, in the 70s, 80s.
And did they teach you as a child about your full history and the era of Hitler and all that stuff?
Yeah, over and over. And we got a very rigged version. And the brainwash was always, we must never forget how guilty we are. That was the brainwash every German had to hear almost daily, how guilty, what a bad people we are, and how guilty we are. And we should always be kept under control, because the world is in danger if we get free. So we were supposed to have no freedoms and feel guilty. That's the German brainwash. Yeah,
that's very interesting to me, the way you describe it, because the way I was taught, Germany taught, I was always told that German kids were taught the history of Germany and why we can't go back, how we have to admit the bad things that we did so that we don't do them again. But I've never heard it described as a way of keeping you down.
Oh, it is. It is. I mean, Germans have been very much kept down all the way since World War II. You see, the policies that the people in the background, I mean, the people who made what's his name? George Orwell, write 1984. These people, they operate, I mean, the people who really are behind the enslavement of mankind, the people who control all the money, all the wealth on this planet, who control the media, who control the governments. It's just a very small circle of people. And I think George Orwell had access to them and was writing that book on their behalf. And they have been steering world events for at least since shortly after the American Revolution. I think the American Revolution was something they only had partly under control, and it was they never intended Americans to get that much freedom as they did. And in Europe, when the French Revolution came, it was already it was staged by the Jacobins, which is a radical branch of the Freemasons. So it was a Freemason revolution, and it was so bloody, and it was in the interest of the I always call them predatory finance, the super rich, because that's what they are. So some call them neutrally as high finance, the money, the people who control them. I call them predatory finance, who are behind everything. So their plan to create these three super states, the preparations for that plan began with Martin Luther. Because for that plan, they needed to make Germany into a centralized very strong state to stage 2 world wars from Germany. And with the collapse of Germany, they had the preparation for the 3 superstates they needed. They needed the history that Germany had to be able to now create these 3 superstates. So the planning went over centuries. They needed Martin Luther to split Germany in 2 halves. Then they staged the 30-year war from 1618 to 1648, where every third German died in the battle between Catholics and Protestants. Then came Napoleon, who, I mean, before Napoleon, we were 300 states. Germany had 300 sovereign states. There was no centralized state, no centralized country. And Napoleon merged many of these. So he made the preparation for a centralized state. And then from Napoleon's end, like 1815 to 1870, when the German Empire was founded, that was only 55 years. So it took them 55 years to merge all these into one. and then they allowed Germany to become the dominant economic factor
Did
in
you
Europe.
say 1850?
1815 to
1815?
1817.
Because
55
I've
years.
always had this image of in my head of Germany, the country, being around longer than America.
Yeah, we were, but not as a centralized country. The decentralized form, in a way, I mean, you had that idea to have many states and not a very powerful central government in Washington. And that system was kind of eroded by giving more and more powers to Washington, D.C., and less to the states, right? But that's one thing that protects democracy if you have very decentralized power structures, like states with a lot of independence. And it was a similar model in Germany. We had 300 sovereign states, which were abolished in favor of a centralized government in Berlin, which was only formed in 1871.
That's a part of German history that I was never taught. So I want to address a lot of the comments.
And then that was the condition for being able to stage a world war that comes from Germany at all. So you see, there was this planning. The mere fact that they made Germany into a centralized state from 1815 and 1870 shows that the people who were behind that already planned the world wars because they needed Germany for that. And the collapse of Germany after World War II or through World War II had the effect that because of this, America became a superpower. That was because of World War II, because you got involved in Europe, you got a lot of power in Europe. Then it was also the cause for the Soviet Union expanding to the Central Europe. So we had this split in East and West.
Right.
So, and then shortly after,
I have a hard time with the idea that World War I was planned decades before it happened, and part of the plan was to make Germany a powerful nation so that they could start it.
Could start what?
I have a hard time with the idea that World War I was started or planned because it happened after Germany was made a unified state in 1918 for the purpose of starting World War I. That
you have a hard time believing that. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's how you see, the goal had been from the beginning to create these three superstates. What I'm telling you is they made America so strong that they could take control of the whole of the Americas in the end, which they won. They made Russia so strong to be in control of the Eurasia state. And after World War II, they made China so strong that China can be at the center of the third superstate. That all goes back to World War II. And World War II goes back to World War I. And World War I goes back to Napoleon. You know, this was a gradual development which was pushed from behind the scenes. That's what I'm trying to show you.
The other thing, I've got to address some comments that keep popping up. You can't see the comments, can you?
Okay. No. Are we alive? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
A lot of folks, based on some of the things you said, it sounds like you're anti-immigrant or
anti-immigrants.
That's the impression you're giving the
I'm anti-mass immigration. Mass immigration. I'm anti bringing in people who produce a lot of crime here, who rape German women, and they don't even really get punished, which is things that happen daily and they're not even reported through the media.
Wow, you sound like Trump when you say that.
Yeah, but I can have positions that he stands for, without supporting his policies. I mean, he has.
Well, but the problem is when Trump says it
Yeah.
over here, he is making these wild claims about the immigrants coming in and creating all this crime when immigrants create an infinitesimally small amount of the crime, especially compared to Americans, our citizens.
Okay.
They don't create that much crime.
Here it's different. There are even official statistics that very clearly show that, like, the vast majority of crimes comes from the immigrants.
And where do your immigrants come
that's
from?
That's statistically proven here.
Where do your immigrants come from?
Well, they come from Middle East, mostly.
Most of ours come from Central America. I mean, we get them from all over the world, of course. That's part of what makes America a great country. But most of yours are from the Middle East?
Yeah, from the Middle East and Africa.
Okay.
And I am all in favor of bringing in people and educating them, give them a good education, so they know a profession or they have a university degree, and then sending them home again to help the country they came from. But
what about those immigrants who were coming because their country is drying up for lack of water, or their country is one that America and the West is starving through sanctions and making it impossible for them to live?
Yeah, I'm not entirely against immigration. There is people who come through real suffering, and because their country is drying up, as you say, and it would be like far too harsh to send such people back. So such people have to be helped. I'm not generally against all the immigration. I'm just against the immigration of people who, the social system here is such that, how to say, the EU has had a policy already decades ago, where they kind of forced the national governments. They set up a policy that forces us, the governments, to bring in at least 1 million of new immigrants every year, and to support them financially. And there's many cases in Germany where immigrants they get social benefits, they get a lot of money as a support, and in many cases, the Germans don't. So there's a clear discrimination against Germans and in favor of immigrants here. I don't know, in the States it may not be like that, but it's here. Huh?
I have to say that sounds very much like the things that Trump says over here, but over here, none of it's true.
Yeah, well, here it is. He may say it because it's like it's. Yeah, I guess that's why that's why many Germans think he's a good guy, but I don't. I don't think Trump is a good guy.
I find you incredibly interesting, Ludwig. I'm being careful to try not to challenge you on some of the things you say, because I'm not in Germany. I don't know, but there's parts of me that want to immediately challenge you on some of the things you're saying. But
because it sounds like Trump. I understand you. Yeah, but the thing is, that's the thinking. We are so used to think, okay, this and this and this and this is what Democrats think, and this is what Republicans think, and you think, oh, he said something that Republicans think, he must be a Republican, or he said something that Democrats think. I don't care what parties say. I just, with every topic,
each topic is its own.
is its own, and I want to rule. I want common sense to rule in every area. I don't care about ideologies. I don't care about left or right. I just want common sense and to
You
rule.
mentioned
Yeah.
you mentioned social benefits a minute ago.
Yeah.
So I have been wishing for national health care in America, like the rest of the civilized world, for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys have national health care. So do you look at us and say, what is wrong with America? They don't have national health care? Or do you wish that you had what we have?
It's there are good things in America and there are bad things, right? It's I think it would be good if you had better social systems as we had, but the social systems we have are, how to say, there's so much abuse of it that it's steering towards collapse. And like the pensions here, they make I don't know the actual figures, something like 100 billion debt every year to be able to pay the pension. And it's clear if you do that, the system will collapse eventually, and they won't be able to pay any pensions to anyone, because the whole system is not in balance through the way it's funded.
Okay.
Right.
And over here with our system, I would say that there's arguably more abuse, but the abuse is by the corporations who own our healthcare, who take all of the profits and pour so little of it back into actual healthcare, and that our system is on the brink of collapse because fewer and fewer people can afford to go to the doctor, and it's turning into a wealth exchange machine where we're exchanging the wealth of the masses and giving it to a few people at the top. And I don't think that's sustainable for very much longer.
Yeah, but that's happening. What that's happening here too. Ultimately, this whole mass immigration thing, there's only one group of people that profits from it, and that's the super rich who get. I mean, they're using immigration to get the salaries down, to give everyone less. You see.
Well, that's a twist that Trump hasn't tried. That mass immigration is fueling or enriching the rich. His is more just they're all
yes,
criminals.
because he's serving them. He's serving them.
Yeah,
he's serving the super. He's apparently serving them. And this thing about Greenland, I mean, that he wants Greenland. I mean, he is a direct servant of like people like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk and you know the
and Putin in my mind.
Richard,
And Putin.
I don't know.
Yeah, you were naming the people that Trump serves, and in my opinion, he serves Putin as well.
Yeah, because they both form part of the system to enslave mankind. So of course they serve each other. No, and these people at the top, they want a centralized place on Earth where they can put these server farms for the AI control, where they have one place from which they can control the whole of mankind through AI. And that takes so much space to have all these supercomputers, these big servers. And they have one big problem, is that this needs a lot of cooling, right?
Yeah.
And that's why they chose Greenland. And also in Greenland, there's nobody there to control them. And that's what the super rich want. That's why Trump wants Greenland.
Wait, what was the reaction from you and people you talk to every day when Trump starts talking about we want Greenland and we're going to take Greenland one way or the other?
But
what were you guys
everyone
thinking when you were reading that?
Yeah, he's completely crazy. I mean, and then and you made that. Yeah, well, he is. The thing is that there's also analytic here, analyst who showed that that the super rich behind Trump, they tell him, go this way, go that way, do this, do that. And this creates all this his erratic behavior where you never know what he's going to do next. And he showed that everything he says or does has an effect on the stock exchange market, on Wall Street. And he says that the super rich, they give him the instruction, do this, do that. And each time, you can bet on rising courses and on falling. And each time he does something, they just earn billions.
Yeah.
So this is not really erratic. It's even calculated to make the super rich even richer at the expense of the general public. We all have to pay for that.
And just in case anybody is listening to Ludwig say this and think that it sounds conspiratorial, you can actually go and see every time he does one of these things, if you look at the people around him, they make bets. There were people who made huge profit on the stock market by changing their stocks just before the invasion of Iran. That's just one example of every time he does something that swings the market, there are people in his circle who cash in to the tune of millions of dollars.
Yeah. And he just gets the orders, do this, do that. And he's just a puppet. I mean, he's playing, I mean, all these political leaders, they are just actors, like Hollywood actors. They get a script, do this, do that, and then they do that.
Yeah.
And
I've long believed that Trump is nowhere near smart enough to pull off some of the crazy crap that he does.
No, he has a script and he just does it. And and his script is this crazy person that everybody believes him to be, but the craziness comes from the people who control him.
Yeah.
From the people who use him to control him. And they are psychopaths.
Absolutely.
They are.
Let's see, Thiel and what's Musk, and what's the other one I'm thinking of? There's been plenty of videos where he's done interviews that probably weren't meant to be widely viewed, but he's talking about the need to, they want to create a society that is devoid of democratic government and only the wealthy control things because they know what we need.
That's a story they put forward to tell you're all too dumb. We have to take control of things, and you will all profit if we control everything. They're trying to tell us it's better you are slaves and have nothing to say and let us control things. And it's for us to say, no.
There is somebody here.
You're not going to be slaves, huh?
I think one of my Ukrainian followers, we haven't talked about Ukraine at all. What are the thoughts on Ukraine in your neck of the woods, in your neighborhood?
Ukraine, I feel so incredibly sorry for the Ukrainian people. I mean, this has been, from my perspective, there is no this government against that government, because all the governments in the world, they serve the same masters. And the masters of this globe, they wanted this war because they profit greatly from it. I mean, BlackRock has basically bought the whole of Ukraine during the war, because everybody is running, everyone, and all the assets were sold cheaply, and BlackRock was kind of buying the whole country. That was one thing, and the other thing is that I think that Putin and Zelensky are basically in one team, and they ran a depopulation program for the Ukraine.
Okay, I've got to stop you there. I have a hard time accepting the
Believing
premise that
yeah.
Putin and Zelensky are on the
Work
same
on the
team.
same team. Yeah. From, I mean, maybe not officially, of course, but from the people who control them from the background.
I'm quite certain that if
Putin
Zelensky was given
Ukraine,
an opportunity to have a duel with Putin to end the war, I'm sure he would jump at it and he wouldn't miss.
Zelensky, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what you have to look at is what is the effect of the war, and the effect of the war is always what the people behind it want. And the effect was BlackRock could buy up the Ukraine. They practically own the country now. And also that the country is largely depopulated. And Zelensky has been hunting the Ukrainian men down who didn't want to go to the front, and sent them to the front, and most of them die within weeks. He's kind of pushing the mass murder of his own people.
All right. I don't believe that even for a second.
Okay.
I watch as much as I can on Ukraine, and I'm not watching American TV with respect to Ukraine.
Yeah.
And you can't deny Putin invaded Ukraine. Ukraine. President Zelensky was the man that the people elected to get rid of their corrupt Putin puppet that they had before. And Russia invaded, and America and Great Britain, we told Ukraine back in 1993. Is that the Budapest memo? I want to say 93. We told them that if you give up all these nukes, we will defend you if Russia ever invades. And we didn't. And now Zelensky is, in my mind, incredibly gracious when Trump comes to him and says, help us defeat these drones in the Middle East. So yeah, I can't agree with the way that you portray Zelensky.
Okay. Yeah.
I've got a question up here from Erop, who I believe is in Ukraine. Question is, Vic, do you suppose you could vote your way out of this homebred Putinist oligarchy of yours? I can already see your ICE thing, armed goons at every poll station in November with CrapLink. I don't know what that is. Yes, I do believe we can vote our way out of this. I do believe that we can, there's 3,386, give or take a few, I might be a little off on that number, counties, which is our most centralized voting locations. All of my ballots go to a county courthouse to be counted. And there aren't, even though it's incredibly expanded, his ICE goons cannot be at every polling station. It's logistically impossible to take over our elections like that. So yes, we can vote this out. The bigger question for me is, the era of Trump is going to end one day. So what is it going to take, Ludwig, for the rest of the world, in particular Europe, to trust America again?
I mean, we have a government that cannot be trusted. And I always distinguish between government and people. I'm very well aware that Trump is not the American people. He's a really bad, ruthless government, and he's making he's making a very bad marketing job for the American people. I mean, giving you a very bad reputation. But I mean, I see Trump is not America. I mean, the American people is not Trump. I mean, for me, that is clear.
But I don't think Trump is America. But at the same time, America in 2024 either voted for him or stayed home and didn't vote. Which means they were okay with a sexual abuser and convicted felon, somebody who led an insurrection against our own government on January 6, 2021, excuse me. There were 2/3 of our country, whether they voted or just sat on their couch, who were okay with that. So I personally believe that America, all of America, not just those of us, because I voted against him, I don't get a pass. I am still an American. I am still a countryman to those who said it was okay for him to be there. I think the responsibility falls on all of us. That's why I'm so active now.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to take 2 or 3 generations before the world trusts America again.
Yeah. How long did it take the world to trust Germany again after Hitler? And Hitler was
question.
Hitler was imposed on the Germans. He never had, in free elections, he never had more than 1/3 of the votes. Never.
But he came to power correct me if I'm wrong, I was taught that he came to power in his party by a margin of 1 vote. Is that?
I don't remember that. But there's a lot of, for those viewers who are interested, there's a lot of background information which I find very interesting in the books of an American historian called Christopher John Bjorknes, which is called Adolf Hitler, Zionist and Bolshevik and Zionist, who argues that he was, from the beginning, he was installed and he was an enemy of the German people, and he puts a lot of evidence on the table that gives a completely different picture than what you could read in the history books. I'm not going to go deep into this, but for those who are interested, a lot of things are just not the way they look from the outside, on the surface. And this whole story about Hitler, he was like an international figure, controlled by the super rich of this planet to promote their long-term plans.
Was he as dumb
for their
as
long-term
Trump
plans, they needed the destruction of Germany at the time.
Was he as dumb as Trump is?
Well, he was a combination Hitler was 2 things. He was ridiculous and he was dangerous. And if you look at Trump, it's the same combination, ridiculous and dangerous. And that's very dangerous for us.
Okay. This has been a fascinating conversation. It's been an hour and it's midnight there in Germany, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I want to take my wife to Germany. We've been married 32 years in June. We've taken 1 trip, and that was to Scotland a few years ago. I very much want to get to Germany to look around at the places where some of my ancestors came from.
Where did they come from? Do you know?
That is I will look that up real quick because it's easy enough for me to do, because I don't remember these details that close. Give me just a second. Bear with me. I've got it all. I'm trying to remember their name. They all came to Chicago, or what would become Chicago. They were farmers. And okay, home.
Yeah, in the 19th century, most Germans were farmers still.
Okay, there's me. There's Dad. There's his dad. Zimmer.
Simon?
Z-I-M. Oh, nope, she was born in America. There's a Becker. Yeah. Her father, Michael Zimmer, came from Prussia.
Prussia. Ah, yeah, that was the part that was emptied, cleared, where everyone was chased away because it was made into mostly into Poland. Part of it became part of the Soviet Union, where Königsberg used to be. That is today Soviet Union, Russia, no longer Soviet Union, Russia. Yeah.
And on my dad's side, there was Joseph Peter. It doesn't tell me. I don't have his city. Yeah, Susanna Jacobs and Joseph Peter Myers. What are the chances that they were Jewish? Was there a lot of Jewish way back then in Germany? Sometimes I wonder if I have Jewish heritage.
Yes, of course, we had a lot of Jews, and actually, the combination Germans and Jews that worked beautifully until the time of Hitler, and they were great contributors to German culture and to German inventions, and it was of course a human disaster that they were killed, but it was also for the culture and for all the other things. It was just a disaster on every level, this persecution of the Jews.
Okay, somebody made a comment that reminded me of one other thing I wanted to say about Germany and Europe in general. When I was in Germany during Operation Desert Storm, I was just amazed at how I could go anywhere, seemed like anywhere, by walking downtown and getting on a train. Your mass transportation system, at least the parts where I was incredible to me. And in America, you mentioned mass transit and trains to go everywhere, and people freak out. No, I have to have my car.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
something else I envy about Germany.
You had some of the best railway systems in the 19th centuries, and then came the car, no?
Yep. All right. Yeah. We're over an hour now. So,
but what I want to say, this public transportation system has suffered a lot in the last 20 years, and the German railway is no longer what it used to be, and we have late trains, and everything is run down now, and to me, Germany in many ways no longer feels like Germany, because the country is it's deliberately destroyed by our government, and it's really sad to see.
Bummers. Well, if I ever do get to take my wife on another trip, I hope to make it Germany. And what part of Germany are you in?
They're destroying the country right now. Yeah.
Well, whatever's going on over there, you don't have Trump.
Yeah, but our Chancellor Merz, he openly pushes for war.
Really?
And
we don't hear any of that.
No, he's crazy. He's as crazy as Trump in a different way.
Who does he want to have war with?
Crazy and supporting all the wars that are being planned, not opposing any of that. And I would say at the moment, the vast majority of Germans is against any war whatsoever. We don't want war. And the politics is we have to get ready for war. It's been like that for months.
Well, I'm afraid if Putin is successful in Ukraine, then I think he'll be looking at war.
Yeah. I mean, we will have to defend ourselves, sure.
Yeah, but anyway,
and the terrible thing is, I mean, the armies in Western Europe, Germany, France, England, Italy, we have so small and not very combative armies that if the US really leaves Europe, we'll be very much exposed to Putin.
Yeah.
We actually need that protection from the US at the moment.
And I think that's part of Putin's plan. I think it's part of Trump's plan, which is why
he wants to pull out, because Putin is to take control of Europe. That's the plan.
Well, let's hope that my fellow Americans and I succeed in putting the brakes on the Trump regime before it gets that far.
That would be very good. If you could somehow find a way, I pray for that. I know many people who pray for peace. We should all pray that Trump is stopped somehow. Yeah. And I keep my fingers crossed. You find a way. You find a way to stop him.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great place to end it. Again, thank you very much for your patience and for joining me. I enjoyed the conversation. I find it. I wish that I could be there to spend hours in a pub or a diner over coffee or whatever to have this discussion for a much longer time.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Tell us the name of your book again, your latest book.
Well, I wrote, interpretations of Tolkien's works also, and a book on the monetary system called Global Prosperity, which I'm currently translating into English, and it will come out maybe this or next week as an ebook also. I give you the link to my ebooks. I have like 2-3 books on Tolkien as an English ebook, and I will have this one ebook on the monetary system where I explain that really the money masters and that the monetary system is really behind all the problems that we have in the world. It all goes back to money.
Yeah, do send me those links in an email.
I will send them to you. Yeah,
I will make a video to talk about our interesting conversation and encourage people to check out your books.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you. And like I say, I'm going to end it now, but don't go away.
Okay.
For everybody who came in and listened to the conversation, thank you for making us a part of your day. Good day. Well, folks, looks like we're back at the barn and it's time to call it a day. I sure do appreciate you spending your time with me. If you want to help keep this podcast going by supporting me, you can get a paid subscription on Substack, where I'm Resistor Vic. Or if you're the type that'd rather go to PayPal, I'm also resistorvic@gmail.com. Thanks again.